Nelson, how are you? Good evening, Charity. How are you? Okay. Uh, Udo said, uh, okay, you've done yours. That's amazing. That's amazing. All right. Olasun, Olasun Kami. Okay, what's up? How are you? You missed the last two classes. Please go back and watch the recorded session. Yeah, go back and watch the recorded session because it's so crucial. Um, next week we're going to start in advanced Excel. So please go back, watch the two classes, and then okay. Jackson saying he hasn't done that. All right. So without any further delay, let's just go ahead and do the challenge, and then we can just move on. If you have done it, fine. If you haven't done it, okay, we're just gonna do it. But please do. It's so crucial for you guys to do your home challenges because it number one, it reinforces what you've learned, right? Number two, practice makes permanent, right? Without practice, Excel is just going to stay in your short-term memory. But with practice, you're going to be better. Yeah, Paul, good evening. How are you? Okay, Etim Matthew said he did not understand the last lecture. Please just go ahead and then watch it again. There's nothing complex. It's just VLOOKUP, XLOOKUP, and then HLOOKUP. So let's go ahead and let me just share my screen and show you guys what we. I believe my screen is visible now, right? Please do indicate if my screen is visible. All right, if my screen is visible, that's amazing. Okay, let's just go back a little bit. In our week one, we did some program orientation. We talked about the overview of data analysis and types of data sets, right? And then in our second class, we covered Excel basics, where we covered functions like basic summary statistic functions like the sum, the average, and the count. And then we also covered data formatting, where we imported some student data set, we cleaned, we formatted, and we analyzed it. And then in our week two, we covered some intermediate Excel skill, where we talked about in our last class, where we covered VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP. We talked about pivot tables and filtering data. And even though we did not cover this, I believe we haven't dived into the advanced filtering, which we're going to be covering today. And then, uh, right, so today we're going to be covering, I'm going to be introducing you guys to data visualization, and then we're going to be visualizing some data, right? So we're going to be creating bar chart, pie chart, line charts for storytelling. But before we dive into that, let's go ahead and let me talk this to the bottom. Okay, before we dive into that, let's just go ahead and see our um, last class, right? So in our last class, we covered HLOOKUP, VLOOKUP, where we had a project-based approach, right? Where we covered all this. We used calculated columns, VLOOKUPs and HLOOKUPs, and we covered HLOOKUPs where we looked up some values in our quarterly sales, right? And then we covered pivot tables where we covered total sales per region, sales per product, and we even went ahead and did calculated columns. We covered monthly and yearly sale trends, year-over-year growth. We haven't covered this. I left this as a challenge for you. The top 3 best-selling products. That was a challenge. Use slices to filter by region. Yeah, we did that. Group sales by month and year, we did that as well. So right, so this is the take-home challenge that I gave you guys. Use VLOOKUP, we've done that already. Use XLOOKUP, we've done that already. So the thing that we're going to be doing today is we've done slicers, we've used slicers already, so we don't have to do that again. It's there in the recorded session. So I'm just going to dive right in and then do this calculate year-over-year growth. Year-over-year growth, it's a very great KPI. While doing some business analysis, it shows how well a business has done from the previous years. For example, a company might compare their performance for the last, for example, a company has been maybe doing some sales for the past 3 years, and they want to compare their performances for the past 2 years, right? For example, in 2023 to 2024, they want to see if there's any growth, right? So that's a very strong indicator. And then we're going to be covering profit per region, and then group sales by month and year. I believe we've done that, but we're going to do it, no problem. So let me just share my Excel screen. Excel. Please do indicate if you can see my Excel screen, please. Excel screen, not the website, not the browser, the Excel screen. Please do indicate if you can see my Excel screen. All right, nice one. So this is where we left the class. In our last class, this is what we've done so far, right? We added slices to our pivot table. So basically we can just click, for example, let's say we want the data for East, we can just click on East and it's gonna filter the data based on East. And if we like, we can click on Node and it's gonna filter the data based on Node, right? So let me just go ahead and see the challenge. Okay, calculate year-over-year growth, right? Okay, so there's a formula for that. There's a formula for that. So let me just go ahead and clear the filter. I've cleared the filter. I can just take this aside for now. And for you to calculate a year-over-year filter, you have to do some things, right? For example, now let's add the year. Let's add the year to the columns. Sorry, to the rows. You can do that by just clicking on the date and then bringing in the year, right? As simple as that. But that brought the entire date, right? So yeah, so we can just right click and then group it. Can I group items? All right, what are we doing here? All right. Sorry, I shouldn't have done that. Remove field. Sorry, let me just mute my phone. It's distracting me a bit. Yeah, my phone is muted now. Someone saying his Excel is not showing analyze. Are you sure you're in your pivot table sheet? Please be sure that you're in your pivot table sheet. If not, just go ahead and then open a pivot table. If not, it's not gonna show you analyze, honestly. It's not gonna show you analyze, right? It's not gonna show you analyze, please. And yeah, just go ahead and then please let me just go back to the data. Let me just go back to the data. Maybe probably you missed the class, please. And here's the data, right? Here's the data. So just highlight your data and then just go to insert and then click on pivot table. This is going to open a new window for you, right? A new sheet with the pivot table. And then you're definitely going to see this analyze, right? For example, now if I go back to this normal sheet, if you take a look at this the ribbon, there's no analyze, right? But once I click on sheet 6, it's a pivot table, right? And I can just see the analyze here, right? So if you're not seeing analyze, please do ensure that you have these data sets. You have the sales data set, right? Which is here. I shared the sales data set with you guys in our last class. If you missed the class, please just go find the data set, import it, and then click on pivot tables, which is going to take you to which is going to bring up this thing for you, right? Yeah. So let's go ahead. Let me bring this date, right? Let's bring it here. Nope. Let me take it up here, right? Yeah. So for you to calculate year over year growth, it's basically not that complex. What you want to do is the if you go to the challenge, it says calculate year over year growth, right? So for you to do that, you have to copy your pivot table, right? So let me convert this table to tables. To Let me remove the sums. Let me just click on the table, go to design, grand totals, do not show grand totals, off rows and columns, and then please do ensure that you're showing your pivot table in tabular form, right? Please change your pivot table view to tabular form, and then you're good to go, right? Nice. So for the sake of the people that missed the last class, please, this is just pivot table summarizing this data, this sales data, right? So pivot tables allows us to do a quick analysis into our data, right? For example, now I can just go ahead and click this region. I can filter, for example, I can filter by region. Let's say I just want to see product for what? For node. I can just go ahead and filter and click OK. This is going to filter my data based on node, right? And then I can go ahead and filter my data based on, for example, let's say here is the list of product that I have. Okay, let's say I want to see the performance of headphones. I can go ahead and click on that. And there's no headphone for this region, right? There's no headphone for the node, right? Okay, let me just go ahead and select smartphone. I believe a smartphone for all regions. Click on OK. Yeah, we can see that we've made 1,100 sales, right? And then for 2023, we've done what? We've done 1,150 sales. So how do we see the year over year growth? So I can just go ahead and copy this table for now. Control C, and then just select anywhere and then Control V. Okay, I've created a copy of my table. So after creating a copy of your table, what do you do now? Okay, for example, let's say, okay, let me just change for um, I'm coming. Um, Sorry, let me group that. Uh, let me remove the filter first. The pivot table report kind of overlap each other. Okay, okay. Um, I believe it's because of the slices. Options. Where is this menu located? Um, where is this menu located? I'm looking for these settings. I want to disconnect this pivot table from the first one. Options. I believe no, it's not in options. Nope, it's not here. Yeah, filter connections, right? Filter connections. So I can just go ahead and then disconnect this pivot table from the slicer. Yeah. So now if I go ahead and click you see now the second pivot table is not affected by the slicer, right? It's not affected by the slicer. So now we can go ahead and let me just take this to the right. Let me bring it here. Yeah. So let's say okay, let's remove the region here. Right click, show field list, right? So we don't want to see the region. We just want to see the date and the products, right? Sorry, the sales. So you can just go ahead and then remove the region because we don't want the region. And then we can also go ahead and remove the products because we don't want to see the products, right? So this leaves us with what? This leaves us with the date. This, okay, sorry, I made a mistake. This leaves us with the what? This leaves us with the date and the number of cells. So for example, let's say I want to see the performance for the year. Let's say um, I want to see the performance. No, I want to see the performance for the year. Let's say um I'm coming. Yeah, automatic. Yeah, I want to see the performance for the year. Let's say 2023. Let me just go ahead and close this. Um, let's say 2023. Um, and what again? To 2024. Sorry, 2024 is not complete, so we cannot compare that. 2024 it ended in the 10th, so we cannot do that comparison. So let's just go ahead and compare between 2022 and 2023, right? Let's just go ahead and do that. So we had these cells for these 2 years. So how do we do? There's a formula for that. The formula is the current year. So you just put your equal sign. The current year is let's say 2023. You click on that. Sorry, before you do that, Excel allows for BODMAS calculation, right? So you have to give it a bracket first. Current year minus previous year, then you close your bracket, divide by previous year, right? And then you press enter. So we can see that this is, so please, if you like, you can format that, just press Control 1. Oh, sorry, that is, okay. That is showing me a shortcut. That is showing me a shortcut for my screen recorder. So we're not going to be using that, please. We're not going to be using that to format. Control 1. So you can just go ahead and format this if you like to add percentage. So we can see that they say this is 0.2% difference between this. Somebody is knocking on my door. Today is so weird, honestly. Yes, please hold on. I'm coming just a minute. Please, sorry for the interruption. I had a visitor, right? Sorry for the interruption, please. Actually, someone is here to see me. I'm sick, so I'm having visitors. So please, this is how you perform the year to year, right? The formula is just the current year minus the previous year divided by the previous year, right? But please add brackets. Add brackets when calculating, when subtracting the current year from the previous year. If not, it's going to give you a wrong answer, right? For example, let me try doing that without adding the brackets. Let me try doing that without adding the brackets. Let me just go ahead and delete all these formulas. For example, if I say equal sign current minus previous divided by previous, you see, I get a wrong percentage. It's going to give me 11.99, which is wrong, right? So please add brackets. So let me just dive into the second challenge, please, as quickly as possible. Find profits per region using calculated columns. Okay, let's just quickly go ahead and do that, please. Profit per region is not that complex. Let's go back to the previous pivot table, right click, and then show field list. Do we have a profit? No. Okay, we don't have a profit. So that means we have to calculate profit. Let me see. Do we have a profit in sales data? Yeah, we do have a profit. So let me just right click and then let me just open a new pivot table, please, using that. We don't have enough time, please. I'm just going to click on that, insert, and then pivot tables. So please, let's just go ahead and add the regions, since we're going to be calculating profit per region, right? So just click on the region and then bring it to the rows. This brings the regions to your pivot table, right? Then what again? Okay. We have to perform. Okay. Do we have a profit? Do we have a profit? Let's check. We do have a profit, but I believe it's missing region sales product. Okay, let's just go ahead and perform calculations, right? No problem. We can just go ahead and perform the calculations. Let me just add the sales, and then, sorry, sales to the values, and then let me add the cost to the values as well. So this gives us a what? Let me zoom a little bit. This gives us the regions, the sum of sales, and then the sum of costs, right? So let's go ahead and perform the calculation, right? So you can just go ahead and say equal sign. Let's create a new column called profits. Press enter. Okay, we can just go ahead and say equal to cost. Let's subtract that from the sales. And then, sorry, sales minus cost. I did that wrongly. This minus this. So let's just go ahead and drag that, right? Um, okay, this gives us 50-50. Okay. Um, but I don't think this is just gonna work like that. Let me just go ahead and perform a calculate, just insert a calculated calculated column like that. I don't think it's gonna work like that. Let me just use pivot tables to do that. Profit, and then I'm just gonna say sales. I'm gonna insert it. I'm gonna subtract that. Sorry, sales, insert the sales, insert, subtract it from the cost, right? And then let me just go ahead and press OK. This an incomplete, it has an operator like plus or minus. Okay. Um, what are we doing wrong here? What are we doing wrong here? Oh, oh my goodness. Sorry, my bad. Sorry, my bad. Sorry, my bad. Nope, this is wrong. Let me just go ahead and clear the field. Go to analyze field, calculated field. The formula is going to be uh, okay. Field is profit. Formula is going to be what? Let's start with an equal sign. It's going to be the sales, insert, subtract that from the cost, and then press OK. Why are we having this? Okay, I believe it's because of the equal sign, right? Yeah. So right fields, I believe by now our profit is gonna work. Yeah. Sum of profit. Yeah, sum of profit is working. I'm sorry for the inconvenience, please. Sorry for the inconvenience. So let's just go ahead and remove the sum of the profit for now. We don't need. Do we need the cost? No. Sum of cost, we don't need that. Sum of sales, we don't need that. So we only need the profit, right? So we made a mistake. We're calculating that two times. Sum of profit, we remove that. So profit per region, we have done the profit per region. So you just click on the pivot table, go to design, and then subtotals do not show subtotals. Grand totals of for rows and columns. This is going to remove the grand totals, and then what again? Report layout show in tabular form. So this is going to show us the profit per region for north, south, east, and west. And we can go ahead and filter this. If you click on the filter, for example, let's say I want to see the profit for east, click on OK, it's 50-50, right? And then let's say I want to see for north, click on OK. Let's say, for example, I want to see the profit for west, click on OK. Yeah. So this is basically how you perform the profit per region. But please do notice that you have to use calculated fields, right? How do you put calculated fields? Just click on wherever on your pivot table, go to analyze, field items and set, and then calculated field, right? Let me just do this. Calculated field, right? You click on this and then you perform your calculations. If not, it's not going to work. Honestly, it's not going to work. So let me take a look at our outline. I believe that is all for the challenge. We've added slices. Uh, we've created pivot table. We've used VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP. Yeah, we've added slices. We've calculated year-over-year growth, right? So let's just dive into today's class, please. There's not enough time, and I'm not feeling well, honestly speaking. I'm not doing better, honestly. You can tell from the energy and the way things are going, I'm not doing well. So let me just go ahead and share my screen. Please do confirm if you can see my screen. Okay. How do you highlight the table? How do you highlight? Okay. Yeah, that is correct. That is correct. From A2 to E51. Yeah, that is absolutely correct. Someone is saying, can we consider inserting a column for profit in the sales table? Yeah, before you open your sales table, you can go ahead and perform that calculation. Then highlight everything and then convert it to a table and then insert it to your pivot. Yeah, that's gonna work. What again? How do you highlight the table? You can highlight the table. There's no point in highlighting your table. Just click anywhere in the middle of your table, insert pivot table, and you're good to go. So let's just dive into data visualization, please. There's not enough time. Um, so you guys are welcome to our introduction to data visualization. So um, how do I go next? All right. So what is data visualization? Data visualization means showing data as pictures, graphs, and charts, right? As simple as that. There's no any big grammar. Showing data as what? Pictures, graphs, and charts, right? So it helps us understand data quickly and find patterns. For example, now after you're done with your analysis and let's say, for example, your stakeholders, your managers, right, your supervisors, you don't just share the data with them, right? It's so complex for them. They don't even know, they cannot find meaning in your data, right? You only share your data as a visualization, right? That's the language that they understand. So what do you use for that visualization? You can share your visualization as a picture, as a graph, or as a chart, right? And even you as an analyst, it's going to be so complex for you sometimes to find meaning in numbers, right? So the best way for you to find meaning in your data is to visualize it. That is the essence of data visualization. It helps visualize your numbers, right? So why data visualization is important, right? Because data visualization is so crucial and so important. For example, charts and graphs make complex data much easier to understand. For example, let's say if you're trying to understand a list of 100 temperature versus seeing them on a line graph, right? For example, if there's 100 data points of temperature variations over a period of time, it's going to be so complex for you to know, right? But by simply looking at them in a line chart, you can spot the trends, right? Better communication, right? Then uh, we have charts like bar chart, for example, showing the average rainfall in different months of the year. We have line graphs showing the growth of a company over several years, right? The time series data, right? And then we have a pie chart showing the percentage of different types of energy use in a country. So, okay, why is it not moving? So let's talk about basic chart types, right? Uh, basic chart types we have bar chart, right? Please pay attention to this table. bar chart, right? Bar chart, this is actually very important. This is like a cheat sheet for you as an analyst. A bar chart compared quantities across categories, right? For example, if you want to compare sales of different products, and then we have a line chart. Line chart, what does it do? It shows trends over time. For example, if you want to show a trend of a data over a certain period of time, right? You use a line chart, right? For example, if you want to show the growth of a website traffic over a year, for example, from January to December, you use a line chart, right? A pie chart. For example, if you want to show the proportion of something or percentages of something, right? Use a what? Use a pie chart. When you want to show the proportion or percentage of something over something, or a part of a whole, that's chart. Scatter plots. Scatter plots are used to identify relationships and correlation between data sets, between variables. For example, we have student data sets. So we're going to be analyzing this data set later to see if there's a positive correlation between students' performance versus average attendance. For example, a student's performance versus study time. Does more study time impacts student performance? So if you want to see this type of correlation, use a scatter plot. And then we have a histogram. For example, if you want to distribute data in a certain range, right? That's when you use a histogram. For example, let's say you have a student's data and you want to see how many students fall within A, how many students fall within B, how many students fall within C, how many students fall within D, right? A, I mean excellent, right? So how many, if you want to see how many, the range of students that fall between, let's say, scored 80 to 90, then from, let's say, 60 to 70, let's say 50 to 60, use a histogram, right? So radar chart. As an analyst, I believe it's going to be so, in my career, I've never used radar chart. For example, but personally, I've used radar chat, but for example, I've never seen no one has ever approached me with a radar chat, an analysis that involves radar chat. But for me personally, for my learning purposes, I've incorporated that into my own projects, but I've never had any work, right? But it compares multiple categories across dimensions, right? Radar charts. And then we have maps. This is self-explanatory. I don't have to talk about this. Maps, this regional cells. For example, you want to show regional cells, north, east, southwest. You can just use a map, right? And then there's a heat map, right? If you want to visualize data density, right? Data density, identifying what? Hotspots or customer activity. For example, or in a website, if you want to see where your users are actually spending more time in your website, you can use a heat map, right? And then bubble chart. For example, in a bubble chart, let's say you want to compare revenue and profits and maybe cost in a 3 dimension, you can use a bubble chart. So donut is actually somehow almost similar to a pie chart. They are almost similar. They also show a specific part of a whole, as simple as that. So moving on, let's talk about bar chart for a minute. So what is a bar chart? So we use bar chart for example, it uses bars of different heights to compare different categories. For example, think of it like a race, right? Tallest bar wins. For example, the tallest bar meaning it has more impact, shortest bar meaning it has less impact, right? When to use a bar chart? When you want to compare different groups, like number of students in a class, right? For example, you have 7 classes and you want to see number of students in the class, or maybe sales of different items. You want to see which product is performing the best, so you can use a bar chart for that. For example, maybe if you want to show the number of goals scored by 3 footballers, you can use a bar chart to show that, right? Comparing like 2 to 3 things, right? So next we have a line chart. We use line chart to show how something changes over a certain period of time, right? Certain period of time. Please do note certain period of time. It's so crucial. See, visualizing your data is so simple. The complex part is knowing what type of chart to use. That's the complex part. Knowing what type of chart to use. You might use the wrong chart to visualize your data, and it's not going to give you the insight you're looking for, right? So knowing what type of chart to use, when to use, it's very important, please. So when do you use a line chart? When you want to show trends and changes over a period of time. For example, like if you want to show temperature changes over a week, or if you want to show stock prices over a year, over a month, you use a line chart. When time is involved, when I was learning line charts, whenever time is involved in my analysis, I know I have to use a line chart. Whenever time is involved in my chart, I know I have to use line charts. So I don't know, maybe that's going to be helpful for you guys. So, for example, if you want to show the growth of a plant over several weeks is a time, right? So we know that we have to use a line chart for that. So next we have a what? We have a pie chart. Cycle for the beginners, a cycle divided into slices, like a pizza, right? If you see, it's like a pizza. Each slice represents a part of a whole. When do you use a pie chart? When do you use a pie chart? For example, if you want to show the percentage of different types of fruits, right, in a fruit salad, or if you want to show the percentages, for example, in our students data set, for example, if you want to show the percentage of favorite subjects, for example, be it science, English, or maths, if you want to show the percentages of that subject, then you use a pie chart to show that, right? Next, we have a scatter plot. So scatter plot uses dots to show the relationship between two things. Each dot represents a pair of value. Whenever you see a dot in a scatter plot, it represents a pair of value. So when do you use a scatter plot? Whenever you want to see if there is a connection between two sets of data. Whenever you want to see a correlation between two data points, you know that you have to use a scatter plot. Relationships, correlation, right? Connection. Whenever if you want to see a connection, as simple as that, you know that you have to use a scatter plot, right? For example, study time versus exam score, height versus weight, right? You know you have to use a scatter plot. For example, let's say I have an ice cream company and I want to see the impact of temperature versus the sales. For example, am I making sales when the weather is hot, or am I making more sales when the weather is colder? So whenever I want to do these types of analysis, I know that I have to use a scatter plot. Why? Because I want to check if there's a relationship, if there's a connection to why A is impacting B, right? As simple as that. So when do you use a histogram? So please, my students used to find this a little bit difficult. Some people usually find it so difficult to differentiate between a histogram and a bar chart. They don't know when to use a histogram and they don't know when to use a bar chart. It's actually simple. A histogram shows the distribution of a range of values, right? The bars are usually grouped together to show how many values fall within a range. For example, if you want to see how many students fall within a specific range, then you have to use a histogram, right? If you want to see how many students fall within a specific range, you have to use a histogram. Or whenever you want to see how your data is spread out, whenever you want to see how your data is spread out, you know that you have to use a histogram, right? Whenever you want to see the heights, let's say, for example, you want to see the heights of a student in a class. So you want to see how many students fall within this height range? How many students fall within this height range? B, and how many students fall within this height range? C, you know that you have to use a histogram, right? Or, for example, for the beginners, when you want to show the number of students who scored within different grades, for example, from 90 to 100, how many students scored between 80 to 89? How many students scored between 70 to 79? You don't care about individual students. You care about group of students, right? That is when you use a histogram. When you want to see the score of an individual student, you have to use a bar chart. But if it's a group of students, then that's when you use a histogram. Please know that, please, for the absolute beginners. Real world examples of data visualization include, for example, we have a weather app showing temperature graphs, and then a bar chart in school report cards, for example, or a COVID-19 dashboard with cases and recoveries, or a daily currency chart, right? These are the real world cases where you see data visualization shines. For example, this is a weather app. This is a weather app dashboard showing a lot of visualizations. For example, let me see if my inscribing tool is going to allow me to inscribe. Yeah. For example, if you take a look at this is a radar chart, right? This is radar chart. And if you take a look at this is another chart, right? Another chart here, right? So this is an inverted bar chart, right? As simple as that. And we can see a line chart as well here. Another line chart here as well. So this is a real world use of data visualization. For example, if this temperature are not visualized using these bar charts, it's going to be so difficult to interpret, right? So that is a real world case where we use a bar chart, right? So I was permitted to spend at a part-time job. For example, this is a real-world use case of a bar chart, right? For example, for seniors, hours permitted is 20, for juniors, 15, for sophomores, 12, for freshmen is 8, right? And then we have another real-world data visualization in action. During the COVID-19, data visualization has played a very significant role, right? Here, by me looking at this data, right? And we've talked about donor charts showing percentages of the whole, right? So if you take a look at this, it's showing 52%, right? 52% females, 43.9% male, and then 3.8% unknown. So you see, whenever you want to show a percentage of a whole, you use a pie chart or a donut chart, right? Same thing goes here, and then same thing goes here. This is basically a histogram. Total cases by age what? Group. Please pay attention to this. Group. They don't want to show individuals. They want to show groups. So that is when you use a histogram, right? If you take a look at it from 0 to 9, right? Then from 40 to 49 years, and then from 80 to 89 years. That is why they use the histogram. As simple as that. And then we have another data visualization in real time. For example, for the cryptocurrency, for the people trading crypto and Forex, and I believe they're familiar with this. This is a candlestick chart, right? So this is another real world data visualization in action. So there are some certain tools that we use for data visualization. So this includes digital tools like Google Sheet, Microsoft Excel, which we're going to be using in a nutshell. And we also have Apple numbers, right? And then secondly, we have cloud websites, which allows us to visualize our data, right? We also have data wrapper. We have Flourish, which is also a free tool. And then we have Tableau, which also allows us to visualize our data for free. Next, we have traditional and analog tools as well. I just included this so that you know. We also have pen and paper. You can visualize your data using a pen and a paper, right? You can use a graph paper as well. You can use whiteboards to visualize your data. And some organizations even prefer flip charts, right? You can also use flip charts to visualize your data, right? So this brings us to the end of the theory aspect. Let me just dive right into the practical aspect to visualize some data and see. Let's dive right back into Excel again. Please do verify if you can see my screen, my Excel screen. Please do verify if you can see my Excel screen so that we go ahead and visualize some data. Wow, that's amazing. So you guys can see my okay, that's cool. Let's go ahead and visualize some data, right? For example, let me start with a bar chart, right? Um, let me see. Do we use this? Okay. Let me see if I have my students data set, because that's gonna be so amazing for us to try. Yeah, we do have the students data. Let me go ahead and open it. Cool. So yeah. Yeah. So okay. Please do verify. I just opened another Excel window. I don't know. Please do verify if you can see the student data set, please. Please do verify, because I want us to visualize uh, histograms and bar charts before we move on to pie chart and scatter plots. I believe we can use this data to visualize sorry, to visualize if there's a positive correlation between study time and average score versus study time. Saying he can't see my screen. Okay, let me just go ahead and
Your
share the screen again.
Is I can see it. Maybe he should check his network.
Okay. Please, are you seeing the student screen or what? Please do verify if you're seeing the student screen.
It's visible. I think you
Okay,
have
somebody
gone
is
to
saying
the
he's still
first
that.
class work we had, I think.
Yeah. That's the data I want to show you. I want to show you guys. The classwork, right? I believe it's visible, right?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay. So let's okay, amazing. So let's go ahead and right. So for example, for you to visualize data in Excel, it's very simple. The difficult part is knowing what type of chart to use. That is the complex part. But visualizing the data is not that difficult, right? We just click of a button in Excel, you can visualize any data that you want, right? So for example, if you go to this insert, Before you even go to the insert, let me just go ahead and select the student score, right? For example, sorry, the average score. Then go to insert. If you go to insert, first thing you see is recommended charts, right? If you click on the recommended charts, sometimes Excel AI, it's gonna give you some recommendations, right? So it's recommending a clustered chart, but a clustered chart is not ideal. This is not what I want, right? Right? And it's showing me a line chart, which is not a my network was reconnecting for a minute. Are you seeing my screen, please? Please indicate if my screen is visible. I got cancelled for a minute. Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Please do verify if you can see my screen because like I got cancelled for a minute. Hello.
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, it's visible, right? Now, if you hover on this, you can see that this is a histogram, right? So you can just click on it and then select histogram. Why are we using histogram? We want to see the distribution of students, right? Let me maximize this. Hello.
Yeah, you can be heard.
Okay. It has been reconnecting. I don't know why my network is stable. and it's been showing reconnecting. I don't know, the network bar is showing 5G and it's saying reconnecting for no reason. So let's go ahead. Let me just go ahead and share my screen. Please, okay, my screen is loading. Please, please do indicate if my screen is visible. Hello, please do indicate if my screen is visible.
Yeah, it's visible.
All right, that's amazing. So okay, so this is a histogram, right? Let me just delete the chat again. Let me start afresh. Okay, I'm trying to visualize. I'm trying to visualize the distribution of students, right? The distribution of average scores. Okay, I want to see how many students fall under 80 from 80, how many students fall under 70, and how many students fall under some certain averages, right? So I know that by taking a look at my problem, I know that I have to use a histogram, right? Based on a theory so far, right? So I can just go ahead and select the column. I want to use my average score to distribute the students based on their what average score. So before I visualize my data, I have to select the column, right? My data lies in what? In the L column, average score, right? So what do I do next? I go to the insert, right? So if I come here, if I click on this, I can see that this is a histogram. A histogram is a chart that I'm looking for, right? So I can go ahead and click histogram, right? So if I click and drag on any corner, I can expand the chart to fit my window, right? I can even what? I can even control X, cut the chart, go to a new sheet, and then paste the chart if I want, right? For example, let's go to a new sheet. You can even come here and control V and then paste your chart. As simple as that, right? You can even cut your chart or copy your chart and paste it in any of the Microsoft ecosystem as, for example, Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, and it's going to work, right? It's going to be connected to your data, right? So let me just go ahead and paste it here for the purpose of this class. Or I don't know if it's better for me to paste it here, right? So let me just paste it here. I don't want to clutter my data set, right? So we have a histogram. So by me looking at this histogram, we know that this is the range for students from 43 to 50, that scored between 43 to 56, and from 59 to 69, right? From 60 to what? From 60 to 89. So what can I do with this chart now? For example, this title, I can click on this. If you want to change the title of this chart, you can just double click on this title and then you can name it to whatever you want. For example, whatever you want. You can name it to whatever you want, right? Or let me just name it distribution of students uh, according to their average score, right? So for example, what can I do with this chart? If I like, I can expand. If you click and drag for the purpose of the beginners, if you click and drag here, you can expand the size of the chart. If you click on the corner, you can resize it, right? Right. For example, if you double click in the middle, please know that there's a difference. If I click on the outside, I can resize the entire chart. If I click on the inside, this allows me to what? To move this, or this allows me to move or resize this as well, right? So how do I change the color? There are some certain things that you have to consider here. For example, if I click on the plus sign here, I can see that I have what? I can shut off the axis, right? And I can turn back the axis. What are the axes? These are the axes, these numbers that you're seeing on the left side and on the bottom, right? These are the axes. For example, I can bring back the axis title, right? For example, the chart title, I can off it or on it, right? The data labels, right? For example, I need the data labels. It's very important for a histogram. For example, if I off the data labels, I only see that from 69 to 82, right? From 59 to 56, but it doesn't show me how many student lies within this range. So I have to come here and activate and check the data level. Now it shows me that 5 students fall within 43 to 56, 8 students fall between 56 to 69, and then 11 students fall between 69 to 82, right? If I like, I can go ahead and add the legends, right? The legend is showing what? Average score, right? Axis title. If you like, you can add axis title, right? To your charts. Sometimes you want to add axis title. By default, I believe these axis titles in some Excel versions, they're hidden. In some Excel versions, they are visible, right? So what can I do with this? Again, I can just go ahead and click on this brush icon. I can choose colors, right? For example, I can choose orange. I can choose this. Just go ahead and choose any color that you want. This just allows you to choose colors. Or if you like, you can go ahead and click on the style and then select whatever style that you want, right? It allows you to customize your charts and make them visually appealing, right? So just play around with this and then choose whatever color that you want. Just play around with it, and then choose whatever color that suits you, right? So for me, uh, I believe I can just go with this default color because blue is my favorite color. So what happens if I right click on the chart? What options do I see? Right click, I see that I have delete, I have I have I'm casting again. My screen is visible, right? Hello, please do indicate if my screen is visible.
Yeah, it's visible. You can go ahead.
Okay, so let's say let's click on this select data. Let's say you want to add data, right? You can just click on this add and then add the data that you want, right? The series name, you can click on it and then add the series value as well. Let's say I want to add more data to this. I can just click on it and then add it, right? But I don't want to add anything. I just want us to be visualizing this data step by step. So for me, this histogram is okay. So what do I do now? Let me just go ahead and then click on view. View. Let me just go ahead and off the heading of the grid lines of the formula bar. And then let me rename this chart to uh, distribution of students using their average score. As simple as that, I can click and drag this. So let me just squeeze this and then bring it here. So the second visualization that I want to show you guys is pie chart, right? For example, let's go back to the data set. Let me bring that to the top. Let's go ahead and delete this. We don't need it anymore. The second data I want to show you guys is it's a pie chart. So let's say, okay, in this data set, do we have any data set that we have to visualize as a pie chart? No. Okay, for us to do that, we have to do some certain calculations. For example, let's say we want to see the percentage of this favorite score. So for the sake of the people that missed the the second and the third class, okay, let me see if I can do some certain calculations for the sake of you guys. Let's say I want to know how many students prefer maths, how many students prefer science as their favorite subject, how many students prefer, let's say, English and something like that. So how do you do that? Okay, it's actually simple. We have a formula that we can use to do that. For example, I can come here and say something like, okay, let me just come below here. Let me say math and then science and then something like, um, what do we have? We have maths, we have science, and then we have English. Okay, we have this. I can beautify it a little bit like this. Um, let me just add corners to it. So we have something like this. So let me write a formula to calculate that. So equal to, there's a formula that, let me zoom a little bit so that you see well. Yeah. So equal sign, we want to count, right? But what type of count do we want to use? We want to use COUNTIF. So this COUNTIF allows you to count the occurrences of some values, right? And it accepts the range and the criteria, right? So COUNTIF, the range is going to be the average score, right? Which lies from L to the column is L. From L2, we don't want to include the column name. So it's from L2 to L25, I believe. Okay, the range is from L2 to L25. I believe that's the range. No, 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 no. I'm looking for the favorite subject. It's J2 to J25. Okay, J2 to J25, right? So what is the criteria? What am I looking for? I'm looking for maths. So let me pass math as a string and then close my bracket and then press enter. So this formula tells me that nine students prefer maths, right? The formula works by counting. For example, you counting maths 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? 6, 7, 8, 9. So that is how it's counted. So the formula is so important. Let's say you have let's say you have 2,000 students, you cannot count manually, right? And the beauty of Excel is that, as we covered in our first class, once you're done with the first formula, you can click and drag. But the problem is the criterias. For example, now if I click this and drag, the criteria is different, right? So I cannot do this. I have to pass English criteria. I have to pass science criteria. So in this case, I cannot just drag. So I have to write the formula again, COUNTIF, click on it, open my bracket. It's from J2 to J25. That is my range. And the criteria I'm looking for is science. Close my bracket, press enter. I have 8 sciences, right? And then for English, COUNTIF, the range is from J2 to J25, comma. The criteria I'm looking for is English. As a string, add the quotes, please. Computers don't understand a string without a quote. Please pass the string. Add double quotes or single quotes around your words. So now I know that 9 students there are 9 students that prefer maths as their favorite subject, 8 science, and then 7 English. So I can simply go ahead and visualize this using a pie chart, right? So how do I do that? I can just highlight my data like this by clicking on the top left down to the bottom right, and then go to insert. Highlight, insert, then pie chart, right? Or a donut chart. Let's choose a donut chart. They're all the same. You see a pie chart or a donut chart. So you see, this gives us a beautiful donut chart. As you can see, this is the percentage for the red from the legend. You can see that red is for science, and then yellow is for English, and then what do we have? Blue is for mathematics. Let's control X this and then drop it in the dashboard. Let's rename this sheet to dashboard. And then we can come here and do Control V to paste it, right? We can resize it, and then we can bring it here. As simple as that. And then we can rename the title as something like distribution or percentages. So I can, if let's say, okay, for this chart as well, I can, if I like, I can click on the chart, right? I can click on the chart and resize it as well, right? I can resize it. I can even click on this brush icon and then choose this, which shows the percentages on the chart, right? I can even change the color to whatever I want. For example, let's see. Okay. Yeah, I believe this color is amazing, right? I can even reduce the size of this text. Let me bring this down, go to the home key, home, and then reduce the size. And then shift this to the top. Yeah, as simple as that. So if this text looks so big to you, for example, this is bold, I can make it normal, or I can make it bold. I can even change the color if I want, right? I can change the color to whatever I want. I can even increase the size of the font, or I can reduce the size of the font. Don't worry, if we get to the dashboard part, we're going to be creating some amazing and visually appealing dashboard, right? So we've created our donut chart, and the options remains the same for the other charts, right? For example, if I like, I can filter. Let's say, for example, I can remove science, right? I can apply, right? This removes science, right? Or I can go ahead and add science back to it and then leave it like that, right? If I like, I can change the colors. If I like, I can, disable the legends. I can disable the labels as well, but let's leave the labels visible, right? And then let's go ahead and add the legends as well. So beautiful. So now we've seen how we can create a histogram. We've seen how we can add a pie chart to our data. I believe let's go ahead and tackle the complex one, which is scatter plots. I believe scatter plots are the most complex. So how do we add scatter plots to our charts. So scatter plots are amazing, but are a bit complex, right? So I want to see if there's a positive correlation between study hours and students' average score. I want to see if students' study hours has a positive impact on their average score. So let me just hold. You can do that by clicking on holding the control key or clicking on anyway and then click control space, right? Control space. How did I do that? Or you can just come here and then manually click on this column, hold your control key and then select the average score. Now you have these two data sets. You have the study time and you have the average score. So go ahead and click on insert, click on the recommended charts. Let's see if Excel is so smart. Yeah, Excel is smart this time. Excel knows that we want to see if there's a correlation between these two data sets. So it by default suggested a scatter plot for us. So we are okay with that. We can just go ahead and click OK. So let's just go ahead and Control X our chart and then go back to the dashboard and then Control V. So now we have our scatter plot. And please, there's this thing that I want to show you guys about scatter plots. Scatter plots are very complex, honestly speaking. And let me see if I can, okay, let me just use my inscription tool. See, if the bubbles are, no, if the bubbles are going this direction, sorry, if the bubbles are what? If the bubbles are going this direction, that means there is a positive correlation, right? There's a positive what? Correlation. And then if the bubbles are going this direction, down, that means there's a what? There's a negative correlation. Negative, right? And if the bubbles are random, for example, let's say we have a bubble here, we have a bubble here, we have a bubble here, another one here, another one here, another one here. The bubbles are scattered, right? They are scattered. They are scattered like this. Within your data points, right? But in our case, we can see that the bubbles are actually moving. It's an uptrend, right? So that means there's a positive correlation between students. Let me go back to the data sets. There's a positive correlation between students' study time versus their average score. That means the more time you spend studying, the better your score. And even in real life, the more time you please do indicate if my screen is visible. I don't know why we're having issues with Zoom today. Justice, please do indicate if my screen is visible.
Yeah, it's visible. You can go ahead.
Is it visible?
Yeah, it's visible. You can go ahead.
Okay, somebody said they cannot see what I'm illustrating. Okay, okay, the illustration was invisible. Please, can you see this illustration? Can you see? Can you see a blue square on the screen? Hello?
It's very visible. You can go
Please
ahead.
verify if you can see a blue square on the screen.
It's displaying. I don't know why they say they are not seeing that. It's very visible.
It's a blue square, right? Okay. And if there's a blue square on your screen, then okay, nice. So, okay, let me just go back a little bit. Um, what I was illustrating is very simple. For you to have you have to understand a scatter plot, right? You cannot just insert a scatter plot into a chart and then you're done, right? No, you have to see if there's a positive correlation or a negative correlation or no correlation at all, right? For example, you have to know if there's a positive correlation between study time versus students' performance. So if the data point, for example, in my case, this is an uptrend, right? It's going up. The bubbles are going up, right, from bottom to top. That means there's a positive correlation between my data points, right? Between my variables. So if the bubbles are going downward, that means there's a negative correlation. And if the bubbles are random, for example, if they are random like this, that means there's totally no correlation between my variables, right? There's no correlation. So in our case, we know that there's a positive correlation because of what? Because our data sets, they are going upward from the bottom to the top, right? That means there's a positive correlation. So um, if we right click on the data, the options are a bit different, right? The options are a bit different for this, right? For example, if I click on this format plot area, right, I can change the field, right? For example, you can, hello, please verify if you can see my screen.
Yeah, it's visible now.
The network is so disappointing, honestly.
Yeah, I
So,
think it's a national, so it's not just particular to you. I'm sure many others should be experiencing that as well, based on it has been terrible
yeah,
today.
because it's showing 5G
Hey,
and
I'm
the network is showing
doing
5G,
same on,
honestly, it's not.
yeah, it's doing same on mine. It's showing 5G, but the network is terribly poor. So it's understandable. Just proceed.
All right, I believe it's not maybe the Zoom servers or something like that, or maybe their CDN. Maybe the CDN is experiencing a lag as well. It's not only us, right? So let me just go ahead and rename this correlation between students performance versus score, right? Students study. Should we just put study time? Study time versus score, right? So how do we add a trend line to this data? For example, you cannot just go ahead and say my data has a positive correlation. Some of these experts are going to ask you what is to add a trend line to validate your correlation. So how do you validate that? It's quite simple. There's a built-in linear regression model into Excel, right? That helps us to add a best fit line to our data and then give us an R score of that correlation, right? So for example, I can just go ahead and click on this plot sign and then come down here and then add a trend line, right? And then let me just go ahead and click on more options. So for example, if we add, let's go ahead and add exponential. It's not that cool. Linear, okay, linear is cool. Logarithmic. We also have polynomial. We have power. We have moving averages. But most of the time, linear is gonna do, right? And then if you scroll down, you can see that where is ASCO? Display R squared value on chart, right? Display what? R squared value on chart. Please go ahead and add that to your chart. So how did I do that? I just click on this plus sign and then I added a trend line, right? And then click on this arrow, then more options, which is going to open this menu for you. Come down here and then click on what? Click on display R squared value and then go ahead and close it. So let me just click on the R squared value and then expand it a little bit and make it bold. So what does this R squared value mean? This R squared value means that our data is 87% correlated, right? So that means that we're not just visualizing our data. We added a best fit line, right? A linear regression line, and then we added an R squared value. An R squared value is a value that shows the percentage of correlation between your variables, right? So an R squared value of 1, that means there's 100% correlation, and then an R squared value of 0 means there's no correlation. But in our case, we have 87, 0.87. So that is an acceptable, that's within an acceptable range, which means there's an 87% correlation, right? So that's amazing. So let's shrink that and then add it to our dashboard as well. Where do I add this? Let me just shrink this a little bit. Shrink this as well. And then maybe add this here. Beautiful. So we've added scatter plots. Scatter plots are amazing. Now we know that there's a positive correlation between students' study time versus their average score. So please do know that the more you study, the more you improve, right? So let's take this as an inspiration to study more, right? To practice more. So what do we have next? I believe the next and final is the line chart and the bar chart. So these are the simple ones. For example, let me see if we have a data set that includes that. Let's check our data set and see if we can visualize a bar chart. Okay, I don't think Okay, this is gonna give us 25 students, which is something that we don't want. For the sake of time, let me just go ahead and create a simple. Let me just go ahead and create a simple data set as quickly as possible. Okay, I'm just gonna create something like this. For example, let's say 2020. Let's say we have 2021, 2022, 2023, 2020, 2024, right? And then yeah, and then for example, let's say we have something like sales. And then let's say, for example, in 2020, we made let's say we made 500 sales. 2021 we made 550. 2022 we made 600, and then 2023, let's say 780. We are growing exponentially, and then 2025, let's say we have 1,200, right? So these simple data sets, let's visualize this simple data set, right? Let's add borders to it, and then yeah, as simple as that. So let me just highlight my data sets and then go to insert. If I click on the recommended chart, I can see that I have a bar chart, right? As simple as that. When do you use a bar chart? When you have individual data points that you want to compare against each other. Just in a little practical class, that is what we did, right? So let's go ahead and press Control X and copy that, and then paste that in our dashboard, right? So as simple as that, right? So let me go ahead and rename, double click annual sale or yearly sales, right? And then let me just shrink that. We can see that in 2020, we made 400 units, 20 units, 2023, 800 units, 2024, another 800 units, right? So if you like, you can click on a certain chart, right? Right click on it and change the color. You can change individual colors as well. Sorry, I did not teach you guys this. Just double click, right click, and then change the fill color to whatever that you want, right? I can put green, double click. I can choose, let's say yellow, double click. If you like, you just play around with the colors. You can choose anything that you want for the colors. It's possible, right? So let me just go ahead and shrink this and then bring it here. So the last and final chart that I want to show you guys is the line chart, right? We can use the same thing to see the sales trend over time. I told you guys in our in our theory class that if you want to see trend over a certain period of time, you have to use a line chart. For example, now this bar chart I'm comparing, right? I'm not seeing the trend over time. I'm just comparing. I'm just seeing, okay, how many sales do we make in 2020, right? That's why I'm using there's a typo here, but we don't care about the typo. We care about the visualization. Now I want to see how well are we performing over from 2020 to 2024, right? So I know that I have to use a line chart for that. Time is involved, right? So I have to click on insert. Let's go to the recommended chart and see. By the recommended chart, we see that a line chart is recommended to us, which is something that we want, right? So we can just click Control X, come to our dashboard, and Control V. Insert recommended charts, line chart, right? Click on OK. Select your chart, Control X, come to your dashboard, Control V. Yeah, that's beautiful. So by me looking at this chart, that we know that we're growing exponentially, right? We see that from 2020 to 2021, we are going to an uptrend, right? Our performance is going from year to year. We're making progress, right? We're moving up. We're moving up, right? And the same thing, if you like, you can change this data set to temperature, right? For example, this should be the years, and then this should be cells, right? This should be the year, and then maybe this should be temperatures, right? As simple as that. I can just go ahead and cell strength, something like that, right? Amazing. So these are the key important data visualization tools that we use in our day-to-day lives as data analysts, right? So I believe with this, now you're equipped with the right knowledge. Now you know what type of chart to use, when to use it, how to use it, to create a minimalistic beginner dashboard. Though this dashboard is cool, but we can enhance it further. We can add colors, we can add macros, we can add buttons to dynamically filter data. We're going to be doing that in our advanced class when we reach the dashboard part, right? So now we know how to create histograms, when to use them. We know how to create a pie chart or a donut chart, when to use them. We know how to change colors. We know how to create scatter plots, how to add R-squared values, how to check relationship between variables, how to activate our axes, how to add legends, right? How to pretty much almost how to do anything with all the data visualization tools embedded into Excel. So please, if you do have any question, I'm just gonna give you like 5 minutes, because there's someone here with me that has been waiting. Actually, I don't want to keep him waiting. So if there is any question that you need to ask pertaining to this class, please. Yeah, I believe the network is so frustrating today. We're going to like recap this class in our next class, then we can move on. I believe the network is everywhere today. It's a little bit bad luck for us now. So please, if you do have any question, just go ahead and ask pertaining to this class. Like you have like 4 minutes, then we can call it a day. Please go ahead and practice. I intentionally use the same data sets that you have so that you can go ahead and use the same data sets that you have to visualize your data. So if you have any question, please go ahead and ask, please. If you have any question, please do not hesitate to ask, please. Yeah, just go ahead and ask your question, please. There's not enough time. Okay, scatter plot. Musa is saying scatter plot, his network was bad. Okay, what is it that you don't understand on the scatter plot? Just go ahead and ask. Just go ahead and don't just say scatter plot. What is it that you don't understand on the scatter plot, please? Okay, how to create it? Okay, it's actually very simple to create the scatter plot. Okay, I told you guys, that when do you use a scatter plot? Scatter plot is when you want to see, 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 when if there's a if there's a correlation between two variables, right? For example, here, I want to see if there is a correlation between, okay, let me drill down my English, please. Let me just drill down my English. I want to see whether the more a student studies, does that give them more score? Does that affect the average score? For example, if you study more, do you get better scores? In a layman's understanding, right? If you study more, do you get better scores or not? Right? So if you have these types of questions, you can answer these types of questions using analysis, right? So we have a data set, we have this student data set with study time and average score. So we want to see if the study time, the more you study, the better scores you get. Is it true or false, right? So how do you do that? We have our study time column and we have our average score column, right? So how do we do that? We click on control key. Whenever you want to select two columns, you select the first column, study time, hold down your control key. This is manual way of doing it. There's another way of doing it, but for the absolute beginners, you can just go and create a chart and then select your data, select your series, give it your range. But that's a little bit complex. So let's do it the manual way. So click on hold down your control key and select your average score. Now you have two columns, right? Release your control key. Go to insert, right? Come to click on the recommended charts. And then I believe that by default, the Microsoft AI, the Excel AI, is going to recommend scatter plot for you because it reads your data, right? As you're analyzing it. So let's click on this scatter plot and then click on OK. And this already gives us a scatter plot, right? As you can see. So Control X, go to your dashboard and Control V, right? Bring it to the middle. Let me point it. Let me point something for you here. What I said was, if the bubbles are going upward, that means there's a positive correlation. Yes, it is true that the more you study, the better scores you get, right? If the bubbles are going downward, for example, let's say we have a bubble here, bubble, 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 right? The bubbles are coming downward, right? The bubbles are coming downward. In my case, they are going upward, right? But if they are coming downward like this, that means there's a negative correlation. That means there's no any connection between studying more and getting better scores. There's no any connection between this, right? And if the bubbles are random, for example, let's say you have a bubble here, you have a bubble here, you have a bubble here, a bubble here, another one here, another one here, right? If they are spread everywhere on your chart, right? That means there is no correlation, either positive or negative. No, there's no any correlation between them, right? There's zero, no correlation between your two variables, right? So as simple as that. I believe that answers your question, right? Okay, somebody is saying, please, after the class, we should drop the Excel sheet we use for both the first and the second classes to have access to the full data to be able to see the formulas in your Excel directly. Okay, actually, I've shared the data set with Justice. All the data set that you're seeing here, I've already shared them. And don't care about the formulas. I've already created a custom formula, a PDF containing all the formulas I'm using, right? I have documented everything in this hackathon. I have all the formulas that I'm using. I have all the data sets. I've shared all the data sets and the formulas in a PDF, right? So you can go ahead and ask Justice, and he's gonna share it with you guys, right? What again? Do you have any questions again?
Yeah, for the person asking that question, kindly follow instructions. I notice most of them don't follow instructions, they don't read informations, and they don't go through messages. And I also want to state this categorically to you all. The fact that we are IGTA as an organization is giving you people this privileged training doesn't mean it is a right. We are doing this, but we expect on the other side to see great level of commitment and interest from the side of the students. That goes in line with understanding our modus operandi as far as trainings are concerned. In IGTA, we don't pamper students to learn. In IGTA, we understand the concept that for training to be effective, sacrifices must be made on the side of the students. That includes creating out time to catch up with classes when you miss them. I discovered just this afternoon that some people were asking for recording sessions that they are not seen for class one, whereas some people had gone through it over and over, which means some resources might be making some persons to choose to be lazy. In IGTA, that is why even though we offer over 100 different courses, our standard is different from the others, like Udemy, Coursera, and the others. You don't do whatever you feel is right for you to do. We ensure students must be followed during trainings properly. After every class,
Me too. It's not my problem.
apologies for that breaking transmission. I'm using my mobile and the call came in. So, like I stated earlier, we as an organization, we continue on a regular basis to give out free knowledge to empower people. However, I'm very committed to ensuring that anybody that is coming into the doors of IGTA is willing to acquire this knowledge. These are knowledge that if you go out there to get it, you will be charged so huge, and it has been brought to your doorstep. Please, this is not designed. Take note, the difference between IGTA and other organizations. I want to repeat it here to the hearing of each and every one of you. Our trainings are not designed to for monetary gains. That is why you see the trainers we bring in IGT are those that we understand that they know that when they are coming to train, they are not just coming to train. They are people with integrity and passion to give back to the community who should be willing to share knowledge without hiding from all you guys have been observing from the trainer, from your trainer. Take note, in as much as the organization is doing its own part of it, students who are coming in must be willing to learn. Telegram is so beautiful that an information drop on Telegram stays there for eternity. So all those informations are in your Telegram forum. And some persons still will choose not to ask the right questions at the right time. We are on class 4 now. Somebody is talking of class 1 and class 2. It's recorded sessions of that, which means you are not making progress. You should be able to learn without dependence on those videos. Take note that this is a 3-month training. It's a hackathon, and it is designed for machine learning and artificial intelligence wise. By the time you leave, all these things you guys are doing are the basics that anybody who comes out from the university with knowledge of data analytics can do. After your first month of training, that is where you will be doing what only professionals and experts who have been in the field can do, which will entail much more commitment and sacrifice. So if at this stage somebody is asking for session, which means that person is not really cautioned, or that person has not conditioned his mind for this program. Please, you all should, this is a clarion call, you all should recondition your mind towards this training. Don't think it is an entertainment industry. Everybody you see, MK you guys see, is a very busy individual. With the issues happening where Trump is laying off staff, if he tells you guys the amount of workload he has on his desk because of his professional expertise, that he can still create time to be here with you guys, even when he's not even in good health, it is to tell you all that this is not for entertainment. This is because we are giving back to the society, especially when it has to do with the resources the organization is putting in place. So please, we will continue to do our best to give you guys the best, but we will not pamper students to be trained. It is your sole responsibility to motivate yourself by accepting the responsibility of being able to sacrifice something for these 3 months only. It is for your good. After now, some of you, we have had trainings that people have left IGTA and they have gotten jobs in almost all the courses programs we do. And I don't think there's ever been a day we have said, if you go out there, you get a job, you come back. We don't beg from students. And we have never done that, and we will never do that. IGTA as an organization, you see, it's self-sponsored. We don't collect funding from anybody. So don't think this is a training program that our programs, we collect money from people because we want to give them knowledge. We don't do that. That's not our design. So please be of your best. After every class, try to get notes. I will give you guys a grace of forgiveness and understanding. I will make provisions for the recorded sessions of the first class, second class, and the third class to be available. Anybody who was thinking you are here to be playing, please, as from Sunday, after every class, the recorded sessions will be available only for a maximum of 2 days. If you miss the class, try between those 2 days to make sure you make notes, your own notes from the session. And that is why we also advise you guys, based on IGTA standard, that you guys have platforms that you have created. After every class, make sure you do your own notes as an individual and post on your platforms so that people can also benefit from you as you are also benefiting. It's all about growing the community and helping to give back to others. And because we in IGTA, we understand that training is not effective if the trainee cannot perform the action of the trainer. So you all should be able to do what you are seeing your trainer do. I want to appreciate you all for continuous commitment and efforts in seeing to it that we make this a success. Once more, the sessions will be made available. The recorded sessions will be made available, but please ensure you make your summary between now and Sunday. And ensure you are also updating your platforms on whatever you are getting as far as the training program is ongoing. So thank you all very much. I felt that it was necessary for me to reiterate that orientation call so that we can all be on the right path while we continue this progress. Thank you once more. MK, thank you once more. And keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, okay, let me go back to the chat section again. All right, so since there's no any question, please, I believe Justice has done his part, just address all the issues you guys are complaining about. And please, I cannot emphasize enough why practicing is important. Please do take your studies seriously, please. if you want to become the best version of yourselves, if you want to become the data analyst you've always dreamed of becoming, uh, you have to practice, please. You have to. I'm not much of a motivational speaker, but just practice makes permanent. I cannot overemphasize. I cannot emphasize enough why practice is key, because we might do a class today and it's going to be on your short-term memory, honestly speaking. Maybe after like 3, 4 days, if I ask you, what is the function of the is NA formula? What does it do? What does it do? If you give it an NA value, what does it return? Is it true or false? Maybe during the class you might know that, but after the class, after like 2 to 3 days, it's gonna fly out of your brain and you can't find it anyway. But what if you practice? What if next day you practice the is NA? What if you practice the count if, the if and the ifs, right? The min max, the average, right? What if you're practicing all these formulas every day? For example, like you set aside 30 minutes every day to practice. Just 30 minutes is enough. You have like 24 hours and dedicate like 30 minutes is enough, right? I have I have a lot of work, right? I have a lot of work right now. A lot is on my table. I don't even know where to start. So, but I'm dedicating my time to mentor you guys, right? To show you guys the way. So if I myself am as busy as I am, I have my personal projects, I have people's projects, right? If as busy as I am, I can dedicate, for example, an hour or 2 hours to show you guys, uh, to teach you guys. I see no reason why you guys cannot do the same thing. It's for your own good, right? For example, me, I I already know I can analyze, I can visualize, right? I'm already an expert in this field, but for you now, you're learning. Please, you have to put in the work. You have to put in the work. You have to keep practicing every day, every day, every day. I believe if you put in the work after like 3 months, you don't need anybody to mentor you again, right? You already know you already maybe an intermediate data analyst and you can learn the rest of the skills on your own, right? So please practice, practice, practice. Don't give it just 30 minutes, it's okay. 30 minutes or an hour, it's okay, right? If you're finding things difficult, write it down. In our next class, come and ask for clarification, as simple as that. And I believe that if you go through the recorded session and go through the data sets I'm providing every time and the formulas, I don't even think you're going to have any question. Maybe outside the context of this class, you're going to be having questions, right? And then we'll address it as simple as that. Please practice, 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 please. And please take your learnings seriously, please, because it's going to help you in the future. Honestly speaking, whether you like it or not, there's always going to be a situation whereby you're going to be given data to analyze. You're going to be working in Excel, whether you like it or not. It's inevitable. Honestly speaking, whether you're a doctor, an engineer, right, you're working in the admin department, it doesn't matter, right? You have to know all this stuff. You have to know this basic data analysis, right? So please do practice every day. Give it 1 hour, give it 30 minutes. We scroll through social media every day. We spend like 2, 3 hours scrolling through social media within our time every day. Just set aside like an hour of your screen time. For example, maybe you spend 3 hours scrolling through TikTok or 2 hours scrolling through TikTok. You can just divide that into two, give 1 hour to yourself for practicing, and then maybe you can scroll through TikTok for an hour, right? Please take your study seriously. That's gonna be all from me for today, right?
Okay, thank you very much, MK. Keep up the good work. Maybe before you and I just noticed the director of IGTA joined the call. So, Madam Director, you want to say a word before we close the session? Kindly say a few words, then we close the session for tonight. And then see you all on Sunday. Madam Director, you want to say a word? Okay, thank you all for being part of this session. Time is money. Wishing you all the best of luck. Good night, and see you all when we meet again on Spine. was set on not being able to allow participants to unmute. So I'm sure she must have been trying to unmute to no avail. So, Madam Director, can you unmute now? Okay, not to waste the students' time. All the best of luck. Good night to you all. See you Sunday. Bye. Thank you for your time.